I'm going to bring to the stage doing a case study on ways of working, do's and don'ts of managing shared accountability in pharma. Please welcome to the stage, Milka, please come on up.
Thanks for not using the word I told you not to use. Awesome. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Thank you all for being here. Introducing myself, so Milka Lukovich. I am a pharmacist by training. I have about 15 years of Canadian pharma experience, so sales, marketing, in a number of different therapeutic areas. And for the last year, I'm working in the global side for Sanofi, leading the launch of our next big blockbuster in immunology. So what I wanted to talk about today was actually, you heard from a lot of the names on these two, a lot of vendors, a lot of great ideas, a lot of great solutions. And what I wanted to talk about today was where that rubber meets the road and how we actually work, collaborate, partner, create, execute with our vendors. And I'll start off by saying that, I know the popular opinion around the room is often, when things don't work out, it's got to be the vendor's fault, right? But I actually don't share that opinion. Who here has had projects that they were really excited about, thought they were amazing, and then at the execution front, it fell a little bit flat? Has anybody had that experience? You start working on something and you're going, this isn't exactly what I had in mind, thank you. So, I really think it starts with us, right? I think the marketers in this room really take the responsibility of thinking through what it is that you need, what you're trying to achieve, what problem you're trying to solve. And I think it starts with us being very clear before we engage with our vendors. First and foremost, I do believe in the closed-loop marketing model. I think you always have to ask yourself, what's the current situation, right? What's the competitive landscape? What problem am I trying to solve? And you have to have a strategy that you're trying to work towards, right? We always get tactical. We start getting into the execution. We're like, oh yeah, that's a great one. Let's do market research on this. Oh, this sounds great. Let's talk omnichannel. And then you kind of stop and ask, wait, what am I trying to achieve with this? So it always has to go back to what's the situation, what's your strategy, then execute, and then be really clear about your KPIs, assess, and go back to the beginning. So I often think about many examples that we do, and I always go back to this, like, were we really clear with what we were hoping to achieve? Say you need to revamp your PSP. What are you trying to do? Are you trying to, really differentiate with this? Or is your goal cost of entry? Those are two very different strategies, and I think that's where taking the time up front starts with you and having that internal clarity and direction. Then when you're really clear and you go out there to find the right partner, find the right vendor, look at the many great partners and solutions that exist, I think a couple of critical success factors that I've learned over the years. First and foremost, investing time up front will pay off dividends. So it's kind of like having a new employee, right? How many times have you, seen someone start on your team and, you've just sent them a bunch of files? And then you get into meetings and you see that things aren't necessarily fully aligned to where you thought they were going. And you're like, yeah, but I sent you 5,500 slides and documents. Like, didn't you figure out from all those slides what I wanted you to do, right? I feel this way about our vendors sometimes. I feel bad, right? We get them on board and we're like, yeah, you got the business, you got the project, just go. And I just found spending that time up front and being really clear about your why, what you hope to deliver, what you're hoping to achieve, really does pay off dividends. And so I don't know about you, but it feels like I'm doing it often. If I have multiple vendors for multiple projects, feels like I'm always having to explain, like, what's the brand essence? What's the experience I want to have? What am I hoping to achieve? So something I've started doing, instead of slides, as part of onboarding a vendor or onboarding an employee, is actually podcasts. You just do snippet podcasts of you telling your brand story, right? So if what's really important to me is that, my patients have a Cadillac experience and I want white glove service because that's what it's going to take to differentiate versus competitors, and your, 30-second spiel, it's such a different experience for them hearing it and hearing the stories around it than just reading your brand plan slides, right? And so I encourage you to think about, and again, we don't have all the time in the world, how can you really give a piece of yourself, right? Because you're the brand champion. You're the subject matter expert. How do you instill your brand essence, your personality, the feeling you want your brand to have to everybody that's working on it? think about podcasts, think about little videos, think about innovative ways that you could bring that to life for them. Second, are we internally aligned on what we want to achieve before we go to the vendor, right? I think about it as a four-legged chair. You've got access, marketing, medical, whether that's PSP in the fourth or whatever your fourth is. Before you go to a vendor, do you know what great looks like? Are we clear on what we're trying to achieve? And more often than not, we're not. And so we all come together, we all come in front of the vendor, and we all have different opinions, and we all want different things. And so the poor vendor is often sitting there going, so you want this, and you want this, and you want this, so I have to deliver on all of this, right? So I think getting that clarity, and again, you're the quarterback. Marketer's a quarterback. Quarterback it. Get everyone on the same page, figure out what great looks like, and then be that quarterback and point of contact for your vendor. Third, people, people, people. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like, oh, I use this agency, I love them, and the other person at the table is like, I use the same agency, I hate them. And you're like, but why? Because people are what matters, right? You connect with your account managers, you connect with the people that understand your brand, and they become an extension of you. And if you've invested in the right people and in that relationship, you can have a very different experience within the same vendor, agency, whatever you want, just depending on who you're working with and what that relationship looks like. And so, I often think about this one as it relates to PSP, because your PSP is your brand, is your company, just like your field forces, just like your MSLs are. They represent who you are. And most of your physicians and customers, they don't know the vendor is behind that. They don't know if that nurse represents you or it represents your brand. So when you think about your PSPs and you think about who's out there talking about your brand and talking to your patients and your customers, did you ask to be part of the recruitment process? Were you clear about the feeling around your brand, the brand essence, your personality, what experience you want? Did you engage early enough to say, hey, these are the kinds of people I need? I need growth mindset people because I want them to be solution-driven, because I don't want the first response from a nurse to a patient experiencing a challenge to be, no, we can't do that. Did you think about it early on and set that expectation with your vendor to say, look, you are me, you are an extension of me, and it's really important to me that everybody that touches this brand embodies that same brand personality. Same with your advisory board vendors, right? Or people that are facilitating and talking to your customers. They really have to embody what you want your brand to embody. So I really encourage you to think about, have you been clear up front with what your brand personality is, what you're hoping to get out of it, and have you actually made sure that everybody that's touching your brand with all of your customers embodies that? And then lastly, I would say ongoing feedback and dialogue. We say it all the time, communicate. We've heard a lot of conversations about this. Bring everybody at the table, etc. What I found time and time again is that when you have a lot of people at the table, and when things start going wrong, there's rarely a safe space for transparent dialogue. The minute you're in a vendor conversation, there's a, oh, they did, what did you do? And there's a feeling of, right, blame. When I talk about feedback and dialogue, be really clear who on your team is going to create a psychologically safe space with that vendor. And the goal of this is you want that person to be the first phone call when something wrong happens. You want the vendor to call that person, feel so safe, feel so trusted that you're going to co-solution together, that's the first phone call. Not their boss, not figure out how to message this, not figure out how to, show the right data to make this look better. Call me. That, to me, is a true sign of partnership. Because guess what? Things will go wrong. And it's not perfect, and you want to know early on so you can actually fix it. Because what's the point in pretending, and what's the point in that problem getting worse and worse? And by the time it comes to you, then, you're peeling back the onion, you're taking 3 to 6 months to figure everything out. So these 4, I think, for me, if you actually think about the challenges you've had on numerous projects and go back to say, shoot, if I took the time up front, or if we were more aligned internally and had one voice, or if we had made sure the right people were presenting our brand, more often than not, the execution would have been very different. And so I'll leave you with my hard-learned lessons, which we all have. One of them for sure is that where there is smoke, there is fire. And I think I've experienced this on a number of initiatives. One that I particularly remember, and my previous sales partner in crime is in the room, when we went through a difficult PSP transition, we started hearing from customers and from our reps that things were going wrong. And you have to trust your customers, you have to listen to your reps, and you have to dig deeper and find out what's happening. Because it was the first signs that everyone tried to ignore, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. And as we kept going, we lost significant time denying the experiences we were hearing and just saying, oh, that's just one patient, or that's just that rep that always complains, or that, right? No, trust your gut. Where there is smoke, there is fire, and you have to react quickly, and if that relationship is open enough, you should be able to solve it earlier, not waiting until the entire house has burnt down, right? The second one for me is how many cooks in the kitchen our current model has. And I'm all for shared accountability. We all work in very matrix models. Trust me, I see this, the Canadian model is the same as, and actually worse from a global perspective. You've got many, many more players, much bigger organizations, time zones, languages, a lot more variables that make it more complicated. And I think what's challenging sometimes is no one's clear on who the decision maker is. And so, you end up in these meetings of 20 people where you wait for consensus, and there is no such thing as consensus. You will never have 10 people align on wanting to do the exact same thing, making difficult decisions, being agile. It's not possible. You can't even get 10 people in the room on a calendar within, 2 weeks? So this one, I think, is a really challenging one, because I think we work in a matrixed organization. But that doesn't mean that for a particular project, you can't be the quarterback, or you can't be really clear on who is taking the accountability, who is the decision maker, and that person just has to be in the room. And I think that works on both sides. You can work with vendors that are huge too, right? We work with marketing agencies, and there's 6 or 7 different people at the table, and you're not really sure, who on their side, and then you've got confusion on your side, and before you know it, you've got 20 people in every meeting, and you're not really moving forward, right? So I think do what you can to be really clear on that accountability. And then I think the last one, when things start going wrong, very often we have no idea what we're solving for, right? Because we didn't take the time up front to align on what great looks like. We didn't take the time up front to build the trust. We didn't catch the leading indicators that there's smoke. Now we're in a fire situation, and we're quickly trying to resolve and throwing the kitchen sink at it. What are we trying to solve for? What was the root issue? Because throwing the kitchen sink at it is actually not going to fix it, right? And so I find we waste a lot of time and do a lot more damage just trying to Band-Aid it, trying to, where's the, this is the issue. Let's fix this problem, and then let's fix this problem. It's like playing, whack-a-mole, right? Oh yeah, now it's this. And so, I really think it's clear that if you go back and think about the simple 4 principles, if you get those right from the get-go, and if you establish that relationship, I really hope you don't have some of these hard-earned lessons, and I hope that if you do, we all reflect on ourselves and take the accountability that we can before we engage with our vendors, and when we engage with our vendors, to do it better next time. So with that, that's all I had to share today, and I'll open it up to questions, and I really want to hear if any of you have particularly challenging examples or situations where some of this might be helpful.
Watch what happens.
Watch what happens.
Right, here we go. Questions from the audience. All right, amazing. Thank you. Michelle saves the day. Thank you.
She's going to be like, here's my current situation.
Yeah.
type of technology do you think we could use to help, manage these projects better and be able to deliver quicker?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I think oftentimes you're spending so much time figuring out where's the single source of truth, right? And meetings are happening all over the place. You've got work streams, you've got, right? And you're like, oh, I missed one meeting and I have no idea what was decided. I don't know what's moving forward. I would say basic project management tools that you've decided as a team are the best option, right? So whether you have, Microsoft Teams or whatever it is that you use on the back end for your project management, the only tool that works is the one that everybody uses, right? So, if everyone's still stuck on using Excel, let them use Excel. If they want to use a more, project management tool, but you've got to have the buy-in of the entire team and the vendor, then that's your live go-to. I think the challenge sometimes is we introduce new technologies, and I've been guilty of this. I'm like, oh, this is so amazing. I find the Stack or whatever the newest project management tool is, and I send it out, and we don't have access, we don't have issues, we have firewall, and then, I'm the only one inputting everything, and that's not actually the point. So I would say the best tool is the one that everybody can use and will use.
And I thought she was going to say, I used to work at the best agency, because she used to work at Elite, but it didn't go the direction I thought. But still a great comment, so we appreciate it. Any other questions from the audience? Well, I want to thank you. That was great. I think we have a tired group here, but that was fantastic. Round of applause, please, everybody.
Thank you.